Hello everybody. In this video, we're going to be doing an introduction to the payroll application on Odoo. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through a standard payroll flow, and we're going to understand a little bit about the basics of the payroll application. One thing to keep in mind is that this demo is going to be conducted in version 19.3, so you might see some features that are quite new. Now, the first thing about payroll in general is that when we're calculating payroll for a company, the calculations that we're using are going to depend on where the country is based. So, of course, different companies have different legislations, and according to those legislations, we calculate the payroll of the employees. On Odoo, this is defined by the payroll localization. Now, the first thing that we're going to be doing in this demo is to understand how localizations work and how to set them up on the system. So the very first step that we have to do is we want to make sure that our company is set up correctly. To do that, we have to go into the settings application, we go into users and companies, and we check that our company is based in the correct country. If the country is not set up correctly on the company, then the localization is not going to work the way that it should be. So after we've made sure that the country is set up correctly, now we can actually install the localization that we're looking for. So all of the payroll localizations are going to be in the apps. So if I go here into the apps, what I want to do is I'm going to go under the human resources category. When I'm here, I can go ahead and remove the apps filter, and here in this list, I can see all of the different localizations that I have access to. Now, in Odoo Standard, there are a number of localizations that are already available. Some of them are fully compliant, others are still being improved, and we're always creating new localizations and improving the available ones as well. So here I can see the list of all of the localizations and the modules that I can install. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for Belgium, and I can see the Belgian payroll localization module, which is already installed on the database. So now that I've made sure that the localization is installed, let's go into the payroll application and try to understand a little bit how the localization actually works. Now, there's a few different categories when we're talking about payroll localizations. The first one is going to be the structure type. So the structure type basically defines the type of payment for this particular employee or those set of employees. So as an example, for the Belgian localization, each CP is going to have a different structure type. For some other localizations, we might have a structure type for office workers versus for hourly workers who work in warehouses, for example. There's a lot of different structure types that we can have, but the idea here is that we're going to have a structure type defined per employee, and inside the structure type, as we're going to see in a little bit, we're going to have several structures that we can process the pay for. On the structure type itself, there are some defaults that we can set up, and those defaults are going to be taken when we set the structure type up on an employee. Some of them can be changed on the employee, others affect how the payroll runs. So, for example, the wage type, here we can choose between fixed wage and hourly wage, and this one is going to affect how our payroll runs, so it needs to be defined per structure type. We also have the scheduled pay, so how often this is expected to run. The default working hours for employees who are working under the structure type. The time type, this is something that we're going to see a little bit later. And then the pay structure. So the pay structure is something that's very important because this is the default structure that is going to define how our employees are paid on a monthly basis. So what that means is that here I can see that in my pay structure, I can choose from a lot of different structures, but the one that I want to choose is the employee's monthly pay, because based on that, this is what is going to calculate my regular monthly payroll if I don't choose a different structure to override it. So now that we've seen our structure types, let's go and see the structures that are actually inside of the structure type. So under the structure type, we have several different structures. In the Belgian localization, we have some examples like the monthly pay, which we've already discussed, but then we have something like the double holiday pay, the 13th month, and the warrants. So all of those different structures are paid in specific times of the year. They're not going to be calculated as part of my monthly payroll. In other localizations, we could have something like a bonus structure or a commission structure. So this is something that the payroll team would choose when they're creating the pay run to override the regular monthly structure. Now, inside of each one of those structures, we actually have payroll rules. Now, the payroll rules is where all of the calculations take place. So if we go under the employee's monthly pay, we see that we have a lot of different rules, and each one of those rules is going to be fetching information about the employee and about the employee's contract based on the Python expression that is defined. Not all rules are going to be based on the Python expression, but as a general rule, most of the computations happen as a Python code. So here, each one of those rules is going to be calculated according to the condition that is set on the rule, and also according to the computation that we define on the rule. And for each structure, we have a set of rules that is going to define what the total computation or the total amount for the payslip is going to be. So this is kind of the building blocks of the localization. Those are the main moving parts of the localization. And whenever we install a new localization on the system, we're going to have new structure types that will be installed. We're going to have new structures inside of those structure types, and of course, rules inside of those structures as well. Now, that's not the only thing that is going to be adjusted by the localization. We also have certain employee information that we track differently depending on what localization we're using. So in order to see that a little bit more clearly, we're going to go into the employees menu. And here we have our different employee profiles. So on the employee profile, this is where I add all of the information about my employee. So that's going to be whether it is regular information that I just need for data keeping, or it's information that is actually going to affect the payroll run when I go and create a payslip for this employee. So on the payroll profile, we have here several tabs that house the information about this employee. So under the work tab, this is going to be all of the work information, their department, job position, manager, and so on. Under the resume, we're going to see their skills, their experiences. But then here we have those two tabs, which are the personal and the payroll tabs. And those two are the ones that are most important for the calculation of the payslip. Under the personal tab, we have all of the information that might need to be submitted to the government. It might need to be kept in our records for legal reasons, but also a lot of it is going to affect how the employee gets paid, and that is going to depend on the localization as well. So here, for example, we have some information such as the birthday. We have also certain information about the education level or the marital status, and in certain localizations, all of this information might affect the taxation of the employee, for example, or the tax exemptions that they might get. Another thing to keep in mind is that we might see different fields on the employee form depending on the localization that we're using. So in some cases, you might see a social security number, whereas here for the Belgian localization, for example, we have a field for the NISS number. So some of those fields are going to be available on some localizations and not on others. Now, if we go under the payroll tab itself, we are also going to see all of the contract information for this employee. So from version 19, we no longer have a separate contracts model. So all of the contract information is going to be on the employee record itself under the payroll tab. So we have here the employee type, we have the contract start date, all of the wage information, and the pay category. So something that's very important to keep in mind is that this pay category is actually the structure type that we talked about in the beginning. So when I set here the pay category for the employee, what that means is that this is going to be the category or the structure type that they're going to be paid on from month to month. So here in the pay category, when I generate the monthly pay run for this employee, they're going to be paid based on the CP200 monthly pay. Other fields that we have here are also defined by the localization. So if you're creating a brand new database that does not have any localization, you're not going to see all of those fields. On the payroll tab, you're likely only going to see the wage field and some of the other contract information. All of the other monetary fields are going to be defined by the localization. So here in Belgium, we might see some things such as the mobile phone allowance, the meal vouchers, canteen costs, etc. In other localizations, you will see different fields such as transportation allowance, housing allowance, and so on. So all of this is stuff that you need to keep in mind when you're working on a new localization. So basically what we need to do is, of course, we need to fill in all of our employees' contract information. If you already have historical data, we can easily import that. And here, this is going to be how we're keeping track of our employees' contracts from month to month. Another thing that we want to see on the employee record is the different records that we can create for the employee. So here I can see certain things. So I see that this employee has been in contract since the 1st of January 2019, and none of her information has changed since then. But in some cases, we might have some information for the employee change, but we don't necessarily want to create a whole new contract for the employee. For example, if the employee moves, so they no longer live at their old address, they have a new address, I want to be able to define that from a specific period, this employee is domiciled at a different address. But at the same time, if I want to go back and run a pay run from an older period, I would still have the correct information grabbed onto my payslip. So in order to do that, I need to create a new record for this employee. So I can go up here and click on this plus button. And from here, I'm going to say, for example, that this employee has a new record from the 1st of June. And under the personal tab, we can go ahead and change her address. Okay, so basically here I'm going to be keeping track of all of the information that has changed for the employee across the period that they have been employed for me. And at the same time, if I want to or I need to generate an older payslip or an older report, I will still have this information available. So now that we have seen the information on the employee record and all of the different types of information that we have on the employee, let's go ahead and see what our payroll process actually looks like. So before we actually run our payroll, there are certain things that we need to take a look at. So first of all, the employee time, we need to make sure that all of the employee time is registered correctly and it is all validated on the system. So if we go back on the employee and we take a look at the payroll section, we have here under the schedule, first of all, we have the working hours that defines the hours that the employee is expected to work during the week. And then we have a checkbox on whether this employee is attendance-based or not. So what does that mean? It means that if I have an employee who is not attendance-based, then their payroll or their payslip is only going to be defined based on the working hours. But if I have an employee who is attendance-based, then their payroll is going to be defined based on the hours that they have logged in attendance. So, of course, all of this information is going to be important for me to check when I'm doing my payroll. Now, what we're going to see as well as we go through the process is that on version 19.3, this is easier than ever because Odoo already keeps those things in mind for me. So before, what I used to have to do is that I would have to go into the time off application, make sure that all of my time off is validated. I would have to go into the attendance validation, attendance application, make sure that all of my attendance is validated if that's needed. But now I don't really need to do all of those steps separately anymore. So what I need to do is make sure that I don't have any errors or any warnings for any of my employees. And I see here on my payroll dashboard that I do have some warnings actually. So I have one bank account that is missing for an employee, and that might be an issue later on when I'm trying to process the payment. So if I click on the set bank account button, it's going to identify the employee whose bank account is missing. And I can simply go here and assign them the bank account. And yeah, so that warning is going to be disappear from my dashboard. Another thing that I want to do before I go and process my payroll, this is going to be specifically important the first time that you're actually running the payroll, is I want to make sure that the settings on my payroll application are all correct. And I can do that by choosing the pay schedule and configuring the payslip layout. So I can do that from here right away. I set the first pay run month. I can say that this month is going to be the first pay run month, and I also specify what the closing date is going to be. So in my case, I want all pay slips to be closed by the 28th of the month. The other thing that I can do if I need to change this at any time or also before I run my first payslip, I want to go into the settings and make sure of a few things here before we go ahead and proceed. So we see that we have the payroll closing date set up as I have set it up before. And then another thing that I also want to define is when the payslips are sent to my employees. So in this case, I want the payslip to be sent to my employees when I have confirmed it. I also have the option to have it sent to the employee once it's actually paid, so once I mark it as paid, or it will only be sent manually. I'm going to keep it so that it is sent when confirmed. And now my payroll settings look quite okay. Before we proceed into the payslip generation, I want to explain a little bit about those warnings. So those warnings are actually definable. So there are several warnings that are predefined in the on the application itself. But if there is a specific metric or something that I want to keep track of that is not already defined in the application, this is something that we can do as well. So again, under the configuration tab, I have here the warnings, and if I look at them, I see all of the different warnings that I have. Again, some of those are linked to the localization, others are default with the application. And here, if I create a new one, of course, I can use Python code, but that tends to be a little bit more complicated if you're not a developer. So there's also the option to do it as a domain, and then you choose the domain either on the employee or on the payslip or whatever model you want to. And the domain that you're going to define is going to appear for you here as a warning every month, so that you already know anything that needs your attention before you even start running your payroll. So now that our payroll application is completely set up, let's take a look at our monthly payroll process. The first thing that I want to do actually is take a look at the salary adjustments. Now, salary adjustments are not necessarily going to be a monthly process, but it is something that we might need to do every once in a while. So what salary adjustments actually are is it's going to be a payment or a deduction that I'm going to assign to an employee. And there's different things that I can define on the salary adjustment that are going to define how it's calculated on my payslip. So here I've created a salary adjustment. I'm going to choose to only assign it to one employee. And I'm going to choose the type of salary adjustment as an attachment of salary. Those types you can define in the settings as well. And here, what you need to do is say, state the amount, right? So for example, we can say that it's going to be 100 euros. Is this going to be per payslip? That is defined by the duration. So I can choose that it's only going to be a one-time payment. So this person is going to have this adjustment only for 1 month, or it's going to be for a limited period. So for example, until 1,000 euros are paid, or it's going to be unlimited. So this is something that's always going to be added to the payslip until I manually stop it. So there's a lot of different use cases for this, and the use cases for it are also going to depend on the localization and the different rules that you're following to run your payroll. So for example, one company might use salary adjustments for the end of year bonus. If you already have a defined bonus for everybody, for all the employees, then you can just create a new group salary adjustment. You choose all of the employees that you want to give this salary adjustment to. You add the type, and then here you can assign the bonus, and you choose when it's going to be applied. So for the end of year bonus, I can say that I want this to be applied once on the 1st of December. And then I create it, and it's going to be created for all employees. In other cases, like we see here, we might have a child support payment. So for child support payment, what this would mean is that this amount is actually going to be deducted from the payslip of the employee, and in this case, it's going to depend on, again, the localization, what is going to happen with this amount. In most cases, this amount will be paid out to the government by the company, but it is deducted from the employee's payslip to begin with. And actually, one thing that we can see here is if I go on the salary structure type, I can also, I have defined here that this has no end date by default. And that is why when I chose the child support salary adjustment, it became unlimited by default. So all of those things I am going to set up. I want to make sure that everything is correct in my salary adjustments for the month. And here everything looks okay. So I'm ready to go ahead and create my pay run. So if I go to the Payslips tab and I go to pay runs, I see already that I have some older pay runs. One of them has a warning, so I can see here if everything is okay, because it will be green. If I do have a warning, it's going to show me that there is an issue with this pay run. But for now, that's going to be okay. I'm going to create the pay run for this month. Now, when we're creating a pay run, there's different types of pay runs that we can create. So the first one is the monthly pay, right? So here, if I select the structure, this is going to be the employee's monthly pay. And that is the one that I'm going to be generating every month. But in other cases, like we mentioned before, I might be generating a pay run that is for a different type of payment. So for example, around this time of year, we might be generating the double holiday pay for Belgian employees. So in that case, I would change the structure to be for the double holiday pay. For now, I just want to generate the normal pay run for June. I'm going to select my pay structure, and then I'm going to click on continue. Once I'm here, I will select all of the employees that I want to be included in this pay run. And then I select them. And here I have created the pay run. So I can see that I have a warning on this employee. And if I click on her, I see that the pay run for April did not include this employee. So now it's very easy for me to see that there is a discrepancy or there is an issue, even if it's something that is in a historical pay run. So right now I'm generating the pay run for June, but there was an issue in the April pay run, and I can simply choose to adjust this issue right away and then go back to my June pay run. Then I'm going to go ahead and continue. And once I've clicked on continue, I see the time off for all of my employees. So here is going to be where I'll be able to also identify if I have any time off that is not validated, if I have any time off that doesn't necessarily make sense for the employee, or if I spot that there is time off that the employee did not actually register on the system. So for example, if I know that Michael was actually off on the 9th of June, I can simply set that time off right here. So I select what time off type I want to choose, and then I add it right away. And just like that, I'm ready to move forward. Now, in the next part, we're going to have the attendance check. So here I only have one employee that I'm seeing the attendance for. And the reason for that is because she is the only one whose payslip actually depends on her attendance. Everybody else, their payslips just depend on their working schedules. So if I want to see the entire month, I can see that she has registered the attendance for the month. Again, if I see any discrepancies, I'm going to be able to simply adjust them. And then I'll be ready to proceed with my pay run. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And here I can see that everything is good. I don't have any warnings. I don't have any issues with my payslip or with this particular pay run. Another thing that I see as well is that I have here all of the metrics for this particular pay run. So I have the employer cost, the gross, and the net. Now, this pay run is completely ready. So if I go back and I go into the pay runs view, this pay run is ready and I'll be able to pay it at the end of the month. So this is going to be defined based on, again, the schedule that I have set previously. If we go back to this April pay run for a second, I can see that we still have some issues here. So when I have clicked on this, I see that I have an issue for this pay run because Emma, the net pay of this payslip is 0. So that means that there is something wrong in this payslip, and I should probably check to make sure that this is corrected. So yeah, basically here I'm going to be able to define all of the important things that I want to keep track of every month for all of my employees, depending on the different types of contracts or the different types of payments that my employees have. I might want to check different things. So that's why on the specific pay runs, I will have 4 steps. So I'll be looking at the time off and the attendance of the employee. And in other pay runs, I might only be looking at the time off because the attendance does not have an effect on the payslip. So yeah, this is how we generate the monthly pay run. But in some cases, we might want to generate a separate payslip that is not necessarily linked to a pay run. Now, in order to do that, there are a few different ways that we can do it. So the first and easiest way is that when I click on payslips here, I can click on payslip again. And then from here, I can choose the new off-cycle payslip. When I choose an off-cycle payslip, it's going to open up the payslip view for me. And here I can choose an employee. And I can go ahead and compute his payslip. Now here, when I chose the employee, it defaulted to the default pay structure, but I can, of course, change it. So if I want to have a reimbursement, for example, in this case, it is the net is 0, so it's not really, there's nothing for him to be reimbursed. So if I switch back to the monthly pay, I can compute again, and basically here I will be able to validate my payslip separately from the actual monthly the monthly pay run that I have. If I go back to the pay runs, I actually, I'll be able to see only the payslips that are related to the specific pay run, and any off-cycle payslips, I will only be able to see them in the full payslip view. So yeah, at the end of the month, I have here my pay run. It's going to be ready, and I'll be able to go ahead and validate it. So when we are done with the entire pay process, so if I go to the one in May, for example, we see that it has been validated and it's been marked as paid. And here I will be able to download the SEPA file. Now, what kind of payment file I will be able to download, again, is going to depend on the localization, but I'm always going to be able to generate just a general CSV file that I can export and manipulate, or send it to my bank or to my accountants. And this takes us to the end of the payroll process for the monthly payroll. But of course, it's not the end of what the payroll application can do on Odoo, because here we're looking at payroll in isolation. So we're only looking at an HR flow. Of course, there are a lot of things that can be integrated and can be linked with this. If we're looking at HR, we mentioned attendance very briefly, but also the new attendance rules or overtime rules are very integrated with the payroll application, and we can define them however we want to calculate the overtime of the employee, which is also going to have an effect on their final pay. Another thing is the time off, of course. So in version 19.3, actually one thing that we did not really talk about, but you might have noticed if you've worked on Odoo previously, is that we no longer have work entries. So now the work entry view has been replaced by this time off view. So we don't actually have the difference between the work entry and the time off anymore. So all of the attendance types or the time types are defined as in the time off application. So I can see here the paid time off already. It has all of the information that used to be on the work entry and all of the information of the time off as well. And this has a lot of different implications and a lot of use cases that are now possible that weren't possible before. And it's something that's very interesting to explore. Another thing that we also did not get into too much in this video is that payroll is also very closely linked with accounting. So if you're running your accounting on Odoo, or if you're using Odoo as your full ERP, you're going to be able to automatically integrate your accounting your payroll to your accounting application. So when we have the accounting application, we're also going to be able to install not just the payroll localization, but if I go back into the apps, and again, I search for Belgium, we're going to have the payroll localization with accounting. So this is basically going to integrate both of the applications together. Already both applications are going to be integrated, but if I have an accounting localization and I have the payroll localization, this is going to map the accounts that I need on the respective rules, so that at the end of the payroll period, I can simply generate the journal entry that is going to be sent to the accounting team, and all of that is going to happen on the payroll platform itself. Now, one last thing that we want to take a look at before we finish is the reporting. So, of course, you might need to generate different reports at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, and all of these reports can be found under the reporting tab. So the first report is going to be the payslip lines. And here, this is basically going to be a split of all of the different rules that have been generated or have been computed for the pay run. And what you're going to be able to see here is going to, of course, depend on the filters that you have. So right now, we have all of the paid payslip lines for 2026. But I could also say that I want to see only a specific structure. So I only want to see the employee's monthly pay, or I want to see only a specific department. So I would be able to add all of those filters and see the information here based on that. Another report that I have is the payslip workday line. So this is also very useful, especially now that we don't have the work entries anymore. So here I'm going to be able to see all of the different time types that the employees have worked. So right now, all of my employees have worked attendance. We don't have other time types, but here you can also switch the measure. So right now I'm seeing it as a monetary amount, but I might just want to see it as the number of days. And of course, same as with all reports, we can adjust the filters to show us whatever data we need. The last report that we're going to look at is the payslip other inputs. So this is going to come up when you have added other inputs to your payslip. So this other inputs are basically something that is not going to be on every single payslip. It is something that we're going to be adding whenever we need them. So, for example, the salary adjustments that we have added were added to the payslips as other inputs. And if we removed the paid or done filter, now we're able to see the other inputs that were added to the payslips in this report. Now, other than those standard reports, of course, we have reports that are, again, linked to specific localizations. So these might be reports that are required by the government, or they might be reports that companies generally need to generate under the specific localization. And all of those reports are going to be found also under the reporting section. So yeah, this covers the basics of the payroll localization. Now, again, the payroll localization or the payroll application in general is very variable, and there's a lot that can be done with it. What we have discussed today is the standard flow and the basic introduction to the application. And hopefully this can help you if you need to either implement Odoo or run your payroll on Odoo using a payroll localization. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have found this helpful. And if you're excited to see all of the new changes that are coming up in version 20, don't forget to also join us for OXP.